Good morning, everyone. Hello and good morning. Well, as we all know, later today, East End gangland criminal Reggie Kray will be buried alongside his brothers Ronnie and Charlie in Chingford. It's likely to be a bigger and a more flamboyant funeral than Ronnie Krays was 5 years ago. But why did so many people line the streets and cheer as Ronnie Kray's coffin went by, as they probably will do again later on today? So why are we glamorizing common criminals?
Ronnie and Reggie were the most glamorous men I've ever seen in my life.
They were common criminals.
I don't care about that. They turned out beautifully mannered. I've never forgotten them, and all over the years I've sort of kept in contact with them. And that's
You met them when you were Miss United Kingdom?
Yes, I was in the Miss World contest, and I've kept in touch with them. I used to sort of mix socially with them, and I've always been impressed by
Why would you want to mix socially with common criminals?
But they weren't common criminals.
But they
I
were.
thought Hollywood had hit town. You've only got to see, when they came through the door, I honestly thought Hollywood had hit town. Okay, in Ronnie's case, it was a touch of the Al Capones, but we won't go into that. But they were Hollywood. They were definitely Hollywood.
That's what's relevant,
They've always
what we
been
won't go
Hollywood,
into, the Al
and that's why
Capones.
when I go to the funeral later on this afternoon, I will step out of a 12-seater stretch limo for Reggie's sake, because if Reggie's looking for me up there or down wherever...
This is a stretch limo we've got on the screen. This is what the thing you're hiring for the funeral this afternoon.
That is my favourite stretch limo. Reggie would approve of that, and when I get out of that, I'm bringing Reggie in death what he loved in life and what he would see more of if he hadn't been incarcerated for over 30 years.
What are you bringing him in death?
I'm bringing him the glamour that he loved. He loved glamour. He epitomised glamour.
You'll be bringing a big wreath as well?
I will, yes. I will not tell you the words, but the words will tell the world what I thought of the man. And
what did you think of him?
I thought he was marvellous. I think he was the epitome of style and glamour, and absolutely marvellous. And when he got older, he was a very sensitive man, and he writes poetry. He wrote, I'm awfully sorry, but I still feel he's with us.
They tortured people, they extorted money from people, they intimidated people, they frightened people.
Reggie had a twin brother who was slightly unbalanced, we know that. Ronnie was the stronger half of the two in that...
Do you think they're glamorous?
He was emotionally involved with him.
I've never heard so much rubbish in my life. The Krays was murderers, they were gangsters. I have lived in Tower Hamlets all my life, Bethnal Green. I live just 7 minutes, 8 minutes stride from there. I used to work for a firm where we used to sit outside their house and see the goings on in Mellons Road where the mum lived and brought them up. These are criminals. The people today, the media, television, newspapers, and the people like yourself and others around you, they just go there. I'll give you an instance, if I may. When the younger brother was buried on that particular day, it was in, as you know, coming down from Bethnal Green Road, and the police stopped all the traffic. I had to go to the bank up in Bethnal Green on the corner there, an office, because the police were stopping the traffic. I had to walk up there and coming back. And when I come back, getting here, there was lying 3, 4, 5 deep on the curb. And as I come along, I spotted my young sister, and I tapped her on the shoulder and I said, "What are you doing here, Reen? Haven't you got anything better to do than stand here and watch this?" "Oh no, I must see this." I said, "What are you waiting for?" She said, "I'm waiting to see all the film stars."
Style and glamour is never outdated. That's why we carried it on for them. We don't care about the scruffy yobbos of today.
Can I tell you, if I may, I live 7 minutes walk from the Blind Beggars. I detest acting to live behind Blind Beggars. Okay, there's new owners passed on and on and on. I live there, Federal Law in Tower Hamlets, and I want there. No, I don't have to live. I'm not a gangster. I'm not a criminal. I've been brought up the way to respect people, and I respect the police very much. And yes, I know. And I'll tell you what, I believe the police officer, Nipper, who actually done Nipper Reed, I reckon he should have been made a knight.
Hang on, Tommy.
Not the people who get the knights today.
Robert, my dad knew them a lot of years ago. Now, if the crime you got now, you would not have had them days, and you wouldn't. You cannot walk up Whitechapel no more. It's dangerous.
So
you can't.
Did you think they were glamorous?
Put us away. If they'd been here now, would not have.
That's a separate question. We'll come on to that. We'll come on to whether the streets are safe or not. I know Tommy's got some views on that.
Glamorised them.
Have we glamorised them?
I don't think they're glamorising. Admittedly, they did do things wrong. As some stepdad says, they were scallywags.
But why do we make so much of a fuss? Why she's talking about glamorising? Why is he saying that his sister goes there to kind of see them and treat them like film stars, as if they're sports idols? They'll get more attention than our Olympic athletes.
Robert, the way it was in them days, when they had the clubs and all that, it was about that. was about a lot of clubs in them days. Barbara Windsor was there, all other people used to go there. That's just the way it was
We've
in
got
them
pictures
days.
of them with all kinds of people, yeah.
So,
They sought the glamour, obviously. They actually went out seeking people like Barbara Windsor, Joe
but they
Lewis
did-
and all the rest of it.
that's just the way it was in them days. But what I'm saying is now, what is now, Whitechapel now, if they were in Whitechapel now, you would not have the crime like you've got now.
Right.
Muggings you have now, of nursing staff.
You think they
That's
glamorised
drug
them?
related, surely.
I think basically, like when you're looking at the glamorise, who glamorised them in the first place?
Yeah.
You know, I think that was basically a lot to do with the media and the press.
Exactly.
It brought them to the public's attention. So whether they courted it or or whatever,
right.
I think that's where you got to look at it in the first place. Is that they was actually glamorised by the media and the press.
No, but you can understand why they're there. You can understand why his sister's there. You can understand why a lot of people might go there, because they say, okay, this is an event. It might be all the horses and all. They go to beauty. It's out of curiosity. And I saw the newsreel. We've just shown a clip of. What I couldn't understand and what you didn't hear in that newsreel was the cheers. Lots of times, loud cheers, not just one or two. And this is people cheering people, individuals who've been put into prison for murder.
When Reggie was let out to Charlie, his last brother's funeral, Reggie had been incarcerated for 32 years.
I think this
He was
is
being
where,
cheered for that.
He's been incarcerated for
I
longer.
think this is where you should stop and think. They were glamorised thugs and murderers. They weren't even successful. They didn't die rich people. They spent many years of their lives in prison, and I think they gloried in what they were. And I will tell you a story of how I met one of them. I was leaving the office to have a drink with a colleague, and I was called to the telephone just as we reached the door. By the time I reached the pub, he'd gone. So it was empty. I bought myself a beer, I'd taken a book, and I sat in the corner, and just then a man came through the door. He had Old Leg written all over him. He went to the bar, he ordered a drink, picked up his beer, and came to my table. So I said, you can sit down. I laugh now, how arrogant I was. And
You pulled.
he said, if your friends knew who I was, they wouldn't want you to have me at your table. I said, when my friends dictate to me, that's the time I'll worry. As long as you behave yourself, you may sit at my table.
And who was it?
It was a hilarious half an hour. He was trying to stop smoking, I was. He talked of the underworld the entire time. He told me about prison.
Who was it?
When I got outside, he said, you've been so nice, I think I should tell you who I am.
Ronnie Kray.
And I said, and who are you? He said, I'm one of the Kray brothers. And I kept a dead straight face and said, who are they? Are they actors? And he was gobsmacked because
But you're still here to tell the tale, so he wasn't that much of a criminal, was he? I mean, he was.
Hang on, Eileen, Tony. Glamour, we're talking about
If the truth
glamour,
be
right?
told, they weren't very successful criminals,
No,
probably,
that's not glamour,
probably
is it?
because of the glamour. The minute that they posed for that shot,
Right, the David Bailey.
absolutely, the minute that was it, fate sealed as gangsters, basically,
Yes, but if they
because
were
everybody
really-
knew who they were,
Sorry.
everybody had a mark there for, you know, when the stories that, there are so many of them, which town did they go to? Liverpool, Manchester,
Right.
Newcastle, all turned away because everybody knew who they were. And reputation preceded them, and you know, people were ready, people were waiting, and they weren't successful because
They were
of all
playing
that.
gangsters, that's why you didn't
Playing
realise.
gangsters.
They were playing
gangsters?
gangsters.
Ivan, you
I
defended
could have
them.
told
Hang on,
you.
we'll ask a man who defended them 3 times. They were only play acting. They were playing
They were
gangsters,
playing
were
gangsters.
they?
Of course they were. Catching their coats.
And
Well,
didn't they
that
sit up
wasn't
and-
that
Please.
wasn't the evidence. The evidence is that they weren't play acting; they were for real. And 2 thoughts occur to me from having heard the discussion. One is that they just missed capital punishment by 3 years, and I think that they would have expected to have, when caught, died.
be hung.
Yes, I once asked Ronnie Kray whether he believed in capital punishment, and he said yes. That's one thought that
Hang
occurs to
on.
me.
So your experience and your knowledge as their defending barrister, their brief, is that, and your knowledge of them privately and what have you, is that they had done things which they would have accepted they should have been rightly hung for had hanging been in existence then.
Well, I didn't have any private knowledge of them.
Okay.
They weren't social friends, or I only
No,
saw
but I
them
mean
in a
knowledge that didn't
cell.
come into the court.
Yes. No, but I think that they would have thought that they were lucky not to have.
So why are we glamorising them?
I don't know why people glamorise them. I don't know just to what extent this is a response to the media. What I do know is that if we're going to glamorise serious criminals, then we're going to encourage a generation of young people who want to commit crime.
I'm quite struck with this, and perhaps it's just a little hobby horse of mine, but I've got two obituaries here. It's usually said it's the media. It's been said very many times today it's the media that have glamorised them, and it's usually these kind of newspapers, po-faced, self-righteous newspapers like The Independent and The Guardian. You say, oh, it's all the tabloids, it's the red tops. And here you've got The Independent, right, newspaper, which actually self-righteously said we will never have a picture of the royals on our front pages. And look at that, that's the amount of space they give to a common criminal, Reggie Kray. Enormous amount of space. Yeah. More space than they give the next day to one of our most foremost psychiatrists who's done an enormous amount of good, Robin Skinner. The Guardian gives that amount of space to an obituary of Reggie Kray, far more than Howard Winston, who is the featherweight world champion boxer and did a lot of good for charities. What does that say about the Times and the Telegraph? The Times, I gather, said it wouldn't have an obituary, and the Telegraph certainly hasn't produced one to my knowledge. What does that say about it? What's going on here?
What it shows is the double standards of the media. They pontificate against crime and those who commit it, and then they publish their books.
Lynn?
Robert, I think, everybody's saying the media glamorises them, and I believe they do.
They are, aren't they? Respectable, so-called. They like to think they're respectable, highbrow newspapers.
But the other people that glamorise them is, excuse me, but the people that don't live on this planet.
You're looking at Eileen.
Yes, I certainly am looking at Eileen. Yes, I am. Wannabe stars like Barbara Windsor and Eileen.
Well, she was a star. She was Miss UK.
5-minute wonder. Every pickpocket and every little thief all of a sudden knew the Krays and were glamorised over it. I don't necessarily think it was the Krays themselves, but every little bad boy in the East End said, I was a runner for the Krays, I did for the Krays, they've written books. They were probably nothing, they're bad criminals. They should have been locked away for life. And I, for one, am glad the last of them is dead, and let's forget them.
Is she talking about you, Tommy? Because part of the glamorising of them is this kind of myth, perhaps it isn't a myth, but seems to be a myth that's been established, that the streets were safer in the East End when they were around. Is that true?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I can only tell you what I know. And I knew Reggie and Ronnie for 40 years. And all this, they searched for stars and it. Important people looked for them.
Why?
Because they did. Show people business looked to be seen with them.
We've got one of your pictures, Joe Louis.
Joe Louis. There you go.
World champion.
Yeah.
Why
Barbara
was he
Windsor. The wannabe star, Barbara Windsor, Millions of people watch her every day of the week. The wannabe star. Who is her, who isn't on this planet? That's what I want to know. The streets were safer.
You're pointing the finger at Lynn now.
Yes, I am.
Bill.
The streets were safer.
But
people were safer.
Were they a police force? Were they a private police force?
Ask their victims if the streets were safer. Ask their victims.
What victims?
Anybody at the end of a crime
Tell me one of their
victim.
victims, will you please?
Oh, I don't actually know. I work with victims every day of my life.
Can you tell me any of the Krays victims, please?
John, can you tell me?
You're living.
Tommy?
You've got the three murder cases.
Jack the Hat.
Well, sorry, he's a victim. He was a human being.
He was running round the West End, full of drugs and full of booze, with a sawn-off shotgun, looking for those bloody Krays to kill him.
Hey, you're not allowed to say that word!
Sorry, not the bloody Krays.
No, you're not allowed to say that word! I am sorry!
He's going to murder them both.
He was still a victim. He was a man that was murdered by them.
He was a crazy junkie.
You've got George Cornell murdered by
so you can take, so somebody else can take it into their mind and decide to just eliminate him, can they?
Yes.
We can forget the rule of law, can we?
There is no
right.
rule
And what
of
about if
law.
somebody did that for you then, Tommy?
They did. They shot me through the head.
Who did?
They shot me. Never mind about who did.
Oh, well,
They
I
shot
know
me
who
through the
did.
head.
Well, we don't want that kind of society, do we, Tommy? Where people who have no training, have not been elected by anybody, take it upon themselves.
Shot me.
Hang on a minute. No, you can't. Go on, John.
Right.
Can I just
Streets were safer. Hang on a minute, Tommy. Hang on a minute. I'm going back to
You had the other gangster, Mr. Cornell. You know, hi mate, I'm Jack the Lad, walking round, Ronnie Kray is this and Ronnie Kray is that. And then when he was dealt with,
what do you mean dealt with? What do you mean dealt with? What
I mean shot in the head like
he had
he deserved.
a quiet word in his ear, like, yeah.
I used to head up the flying squad at Scotland Yard, and before that, I
say
was.
no more.
Well, that's all right,
Say no
Tommy.
more.
I mean, we
How much did you earn?
we did a good job on you.
How much did you earn? Hey,
Well, I earned my wages
biggest gang
quite
of
successfully.
you were worse than the Krays.
After that tribute,
Let him have his say now.
can I say I was born and brought up in the East End of London, and my stamping ground was around Roman Road and the pubs around there and so forth. And as a kid, I had never ever heard of the Krays. So this notion that they were this omnipotent presence throughout the East End of London is total and utter rubbish. They had no influence on crime in the East End of London at all. Nothing whatsoever. I came across them, or I heard about them, after I joined the police service.
Yeah, but John...
There were dozens of gangs in London in those days, and there's no way that the crime was seen to be at an acceptable level. What you had in London in those days were poor people. They had nothing worth nicking off them. You didn't have drugs. You had more of a family influence. You had probably a more effective police force. You had all those factors were in existence in those days. Yeah, don't tell me that criminals actually stop crime in London, because that is the biggest load of nonsense I've ever heard in my life.
Jack the App was a criminal. And what would have happened if it had stabbed Reggie Kray?
Okay, that's one. That's one.
What would have happened if Cornell had shot Ronnie Kray?
Oh, that's
would they have got a 30-year recommendation?
Okay, but leave those two alone. You're telling us the streets, Tommy's quite vehement about it, that the streets were safer. That you didn't kind of mug old ladies, you didn't burgle.
No, you didn't.
You didn't. Oh, you're telling me there were no burglars in the East End in Bethnal Green in the 60s?
Well,
come on.
Well, you had a...
I've been around a bit. I mean, even I know that's a load of...
Come on, Robert, you had a guy on here the other...
Oh, but you're telling us they kept order in their manor.
Well, they did.
And everybody was so scared of them, nobody burgled, but they did burgle, and they did mug old ladies, and they did rob
people. You had a gent on here not so long ago. He was an out-and-out burglar.
Who?
Lenny Harton.
What, on my programme?
Yeah, on your programme, yeah.
I hope you're not libeling him. So what's he got to do with it? So what's that got to do with it? So you're saying that he's...
No, but they talk about what Ronnie Kray done to him. I know people that were in the Esmeralda's barn when he said that Ronnie Kray put a poker to him and he done his eye and that. You know, it never happened because Reggie Kray stopped it.
Oh, so he shouldn't have gone to prison either,
Robert's
then?
the bottom. Robert's
they all knew what they
that's all a load of fairy tales, all that stuff.
You know, since we were in there, it was all political, wasn't it? It's all political, Robert.
You cannot compare the 1960s to the year 2000 on crime. You can't. It's a completely different era.
No, but honestly, hang on. Nobody's... I absolutely accept that. Nobody's making that comparison. Of course, crime has increased in the East End as it has elsewhere. In Birmingham, in Glasgow, Liverpool, Sri Lanka.
Everything's changed.
But what we're talking about, they're all saying the streets were safe.
Yeah, but the thing, the bottom line is in the 1960s, the media coverage is a big thing of this, because the media coverage we receive now compared to the 1960s is completely different. Nowadays, I mean, I've been watching
hang on, what do you mean we? Who are we?
People, general public in Britain. Basically, we can sit now today watching what's going on in Yugoslavia. It's terrifying sight we're seeing in Yugoslavia now. Now, something that was happening in Yugoslavia in the 1960s, we probably wouldn't have found out within about 7 days. Now we can find out about it within 7 minutes via a satellite link. And that's what I'm trying to say. That because of the media and the way it's changed, we now hear about things a lot more. Right. The Krays, basically, the Kray name sells. Rubbish. The bottom line is, I started off in the plastic, and just give us a second, Bernie. I started off basically by selling a lot of merchandise for the Krays. It was a marketable thing. I sold T-shirts, bags, mirrors, that kind of thing. People buy it.
We'll come to that. I want to come on to that in a moment. What we're talking about now is not what you're selling, is whether the streets were safer. Helen, you've been trying to get in between these two a long time.
Safer, much safer. I think nothing of walking home in the dark after a party or something, 2, 3 in the morning. Oh, I don't know, about 18.
You do know how old you were in the 60s. What do you mean you don't know? Listen to us. No, if you're telling us you've got first-hand evidence, we've got... Yeah, how old were you when you were walking...
About 18, 17, 18, coming home from parties, whatever, with friends or on my own. I think nothing. I wouldn't think that was going to be attacked.
Okay,
on
but was that
Monday,
any different? It would
I
have
wouldn't
been...
go out at 6 o'clock at night.
No, of course you wouldn't.
No.
Of course you wouldn't now. But you might have done the same thing in Liverpool 8. You might have done the same thing in Summer Lane in Birmingham. You might have done the same thing in the Baubles in the 60s.
At the area that I knew.
Yeah, but we're not comparing like with like then, are we? These, Tommy and Eileen, are saying they actually made that particular part of London almost a haven for law-abiding citizens.
If they managed to clone the Kray twins years ago and had the Krays in every village, every town, it would have been a safer country, never mind a safer manner.
The idea that the Krays were some kind of private police force going around the East End of London and knocking on little criminals' doors didn't exist at all. I mean, that's the sort of thing that happens in Northern Ireland nowadays, where somebody goes up with a shotgun and a rifle, and it's not right there, and it certainly wouldn't have been right.
But the protection rackets and intimidation.
They were in there frightening people, earning money from these people out of crime.
They ran protection rackets.
No, they didn't. No, they didn't. Can I really agree with the weren't protecting the public space for sure.
I can't, please. Yes, Tommy.
I know Reggie and Ronnie for many, many years. And I know people who open businesses, small clubs, and the gangs that you're talking about went in there and started breaking things and smashing things. Every Friday we'll come in here and we'll pick up £50 to insure you. 2 days afterwards, another gang would be in. Break this, break that. Every Friday we'll come in and we'll pick up 45 or 80 quid or whatever they wanted to protect you. The man's at his wit's end. He phones Reggie and Ronnie. On Friday evening, Reggie and Ronnie are standing in there. There's no violence, there's no guns, there's no noise. There's no noise. They're standing there and the gangs come in.
So where
you see, I'm not allowed to say what I'm saying.
Of course you are, Tommy. So let me ask you a simple question. So where did Reggie and Ronnie get their money from?
Where did they get it from?
They won on the premium bonds, did they?
So what I'm saying, you will hear.
Where did they get the money from?
The gangs came in, and Reggie and Ronnie said, "You do not come near here again. You do never come near here again." And sorry, we didn't know. We're looking after this place.
Where did they get the money from?
I'm trying to tell you if you'll listen.
I am listening, but get to the point, Tommy.
The guy who owned the shop or the club of us was only too happy to give them 20 or 30.
Yes, a donation. Yes, a voluntary. Tommy, listen, I might not have lived in the world you lived in, but I lived in a pretty rough world, and I know what a voluntary donation means. He knows what a voluntary donation means. Come on, Tommy, you know what a voluntary donation means. Even Ivan, like closeted and protected and nurtured as he is, our former Tory Member of Parliament knows what a voluntary donation is. Don't you? Was it safer? What do you mean, no? You were there. You were around, right, Tommy? You probably knew
Reggie and Ronnie. They were glad. They paid them a lot less, and they got a lot more security.
So they got it on the cheap.
Yes.
Oh, right.
And got a lot more security.
So they were still criminals, but they were just
Nobody's denying they were criminals.
Instead of Lynn here having to pay £20 a week,
she's me a tenner.
She's paying you a tenner.
That's right.
And that makes you better than him, does it? Of course it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
Ivan, what's your view on this, Ivan?
Well,
the street safer
the view that if Ronnie and Reggie had been around today, the streets would have been safer is total nonsense. The reason why the streets aren't safe today is that between 60 and 80% of all crime is committed by people who are on drugs or need drugs, and they weren't around. Drugs weren't around in Ronnie and Reggie's day, and they would have been totally helpless in controlling anything.
That was not the question.
The people who burgle and the people who rob and the
question.
people who commit nearly all of the crimes today, in London in particular, I can't speak for other parts of the country, do it because they're high on drugs or need them
I agree with you.
in order to be high on drugs.
The question was, were the streets safer in those days?
Yes, but they
were.
And you said,
and the reason they were, when I was young, there were 30 million people in this country. Now there are 65 million people in this country.
Leave it there, Tommy. Tommy is quite convinced. Yes, we all are. There's much more crime around nowadays than there was. And then, of course, there are, but it's not just in the East End, it's everywhere too. We're actually doing a programme on it. Have you been mugged? If you have, give us a call. You know what the number is. Are you afraid to go out because you're afraid of mugging in your area? Were you mugged, and did you actually fight back? Did you get hurt? do you realise now that perhaps you shouldn't have fought back? Or are you somebody who say, I will always fight back and they'll never take anything from me without a fight? Are you a mugger? Really? We'd like to hear from you, especially. Come here and tell us why you've mugged in the past. Phone us now, 0990 100 771. You're another one of those that believe...
Another one of what? Another one of what? Just now,
code of honour.
Just now I tried to talk to you, you waved me down. Right now you want me to talk, I'm going to talk. I used to work...
Well, you don't have to, you don't want to.
Well, I'm going to, now.
Go on, then, make my life easy, for goodness sake.
Well, I will do. I can talk just as well as you. And listen to me, I've been a professional entertainer all my life, and I've spent 20 years in the Special Forces. I know about killing, I know about gangsters. I worked for the Krays, I worked for a lot of villains. They respected me, they never got me involved in anything they'd done, and I respected them for what they were. They never touched me. I'll tell you something now, I've got 12 children, I've got 25 grandchildren, and 6 great-grandchildren. I wouldn't let my 25-year-old daughter go to a nightclub. I wouldn't let them go after 6 o'clock at night. Old age pensioners can't walk the street, they can't come down in my pub and have a drink because they're frightened, yeah? I'll tell you what the code of honour was then. You did not take a liberty with someone else's wife. I'm talking to you, listen.
I'm listening.
They did not take liberties
I thought you were pointing at Tommy.
And don't we look alike, by the way? You do not take liberties with someone else's wife. You do, all right, you're a drug dealer, that's your business, mate. Doesn't matter.
You are a
drug dealer. About glamorising. In show business, we do love the clap and the applause. It makes us feel good. I've done my apprenticeship in the roughest pubs in the East End of London, and my friend, people like you, used to come in there and drink half the time as well, yeah? And I've done my apprenticeship in...
It was the crime. Please, it might have been on duty to have.
Oh, yes, it is.
What do you think of all this?
No, I've finished yet. There is a isn't here today. There's no... I see a 4-year-old kid last week in Tesco's kicking his mother because she wouldn't buy. What's that kid going to be when he's 15 years old?
What would you He kicks a load of old codswallop.
Why do you think that?
Well, I come from Bethnal Green. I was born in East End of London, and I can remember as I was 12 when war was declared, and my mum used to have to. That's why the streets were safe, because the houses there, they had nothing to be stolen from. My mum used to pawn her wedding ring Monday morning to get food for us kids, so the Krays couldn't come and hold them up because they had bloody nothing to give them.
What is it?
When they got bombed, the first people around here were the police and the fire brigade, and they used to rob them. The police used to go with the jewellers and get all the gold.
Don't shout at each other, you can't hear either. Let Bill respond.
Every Monday morning, the right is right.
She is right. She is right. So did I.
The Krays had everything.
No, they didn't have everything. They didn't.
Where is all the money to stay in the...
They didn't have everything. They're not here. All you're doing is talking about people who are dead. They're not here to defend themselves.
They are thugs and they be glorified by people like yourself.
Should we be making money, Steve, out of these...
This, you know, across this earlier on, I mean, the bottom line is the Kray name's a marketable. It's a marketable name. You look at the name, and it's a name which stands out. It's a strange name. I was 15-year-old at school when I was influenced by it. I remember as being a 10-year-old, I remember seeing Ronnie and Reggie Kray coming out of a prison van to attend their mother's funeral in 1982, and I managed to, a strange set of affairs, pass my English exam by reading John Pearson's book Profession of Violence. Now I had an interest, strange interest. I know when you're 15, 16 years of age, you're at an impressionable age. I passed a percentage of my English exam on that and decided to write to the twins. I got letters back. Obviously they had a lot of time to spend writing to somebody like me, but I believe they had a lot of people who used to write to them on a regular basis. I kept up the pen-pal relationship, and eventually I started, you know, visiting both Ronnie and Broadmoor and Reggie, who was at the time in Gartree. And I don't regret it for 1 minute. I still don't know and can't explain to anybody here or the public watching why I got involved with them.
What was the fascination?
I don't know. I mean, I remember the still images.
You must have analysed it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was naive at the time. Certainly, I mean, I'm 28 now. As I've come forward, I've managed to take the goodness out of it. I met the twins and Charlie as rehabilitated prisoners. Obviously both Ron and Reg. Ron was obviously in a mental institution. Reg was, you know, in a succession of prisons. Charlie was a free man. And I took a lot of good out of those, out of the three people. Ronnie and Reggie had both spent over 20 years in prison, and they were changed men. Obviously, you know, Sir Ivan Lawrence is here in particular, Les Martin, people who knew the twins in the 60s. They'll have seen the change. I only ever knew them as the old gentlemen, the old granddads, if you like.
But you've written a book about them.
Yeah, at the moment I'm in the process of looking for a publisher for my book, The Krays, the Geordie Connection. Basically, I'm, you know, talking about my experience.
You feel comfortable exploiting criminals to make money?
I spoke to Charlie about it before. Before he passed away in April, and told him that I was putting a book together. I mean, I'm
not worried about him.
Yeah.
I'm worried about perhaps their victims or other people.
It doesn't really I mean, it does concern them because obviously the Kray name will again be in the spotlight, but it doesn't concern them because it's not a rehash
You're
of
in a way
stories.
helping to contribute to their kind of myth or their fame or their glamorisation.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly don't deny that.
I work every day of my life with victims of crime, and I work with people who've had their children murdered, and time again...
What's that got to do with the Krays? Absolutely nothing to do with the Krays.
Their victims weren't somebody's child. Everybody is somebody's child. And I work with people, and some of the children that were murdered were 35. They still have a mother that mourns for them. And time again we have people ringing them up. Hugh Collins in Scotland, the Krays, somebody's written a book. You know, we talked to a family in Scotland. They found out how their father was murdered by watching it on a television programme, and the murderer having his photograph taken at the graveside. You know, everybody wants to buy books about criminals. Will the same people that were at the funeral this afternoon, did they go to Sarah Pane's funeral?
It's a genre which, unfortunately, though, people are really interested in. That's why the merchandise I produced as a youngster, i.e. calendars.
But you did the merchandise. You did
I used to do a lot of the
T-shirts,
mirrors, cups, bags, you name it, tea towels, everything apart from toilet roll holders. People used to want to buy it, and it was a marketable avenue which I saw. That was the business I was in at the time, and it's something which I thought, well, at the end of the day, if people buy it, why don't you produce it? It happens. Charles Manson in America, there's people walking around with Charles Manson T-shirts on in this country.
Yeah, it doesn't make it right.
It doesn't make it right, but people are going to buy it. And the press are just as much to blame, because at the end of the day, talking about those obituaries that you were talking about before, Robert, why do it? Because those people know the obituaries about the Krays. People go and buy every paper.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't understand why they do it. I can't understand why they give it. Jean, can I ask Jean first? Sorry,
well,
I know you're a gentleman like Tommy.
Quite honestly, I don't think that anyone should make money out of crime.
There's no justification for either criminals writing books to re-cash in on the crimes that they've done before, or other people writing books to cash in on their name. And if anybody's watching this today, and there might be one or two watching, they should not buy these books. They should not buy these books.
So Robert Mark, the Commissioner of Scotland Yard, as it was then, the Metropolitan Police, he wrote his autobiography. I'm sure another one, I know that, because I actually read it, but he wrote 2
books, and he also advertised Firestone Tyres. Now, you might say that he was cashing in on his badge when he did that. Secondly, you've got to look at it.
Now, Bill, no, come on, no, hang on. You might have a code. I've got a code. Please, Lynn. Hang on, Jamie. I've got a code too. And we're fair to everybody here. And we talk one at a time, and we let people take their turn. You've had a good run, Bill, and you, Tommy. Really good run. I know you've spoken once, but you haven't spoken as much as you... Hang on, Tommy, now, come on, please, play the game.
But it seems to me that it's market forces, and if there's a demand for these type of books, then it will be there. What are you going to have, censorship, and stop people selling books? I look at someone like...
Are you saying that because you're having to defend people like Sir Robert Mark and police like perhaps yourself? Have you written a book?
No, I haven't, no.
But you might.
I've contributed to a book, but not, but purely on an academic point of view, which I didn't get paid for.
Okay, but you've got, in that case, you've got to defend him too, haven't you?
No,
because what's sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander.
This is a matter of civil liberties and living in a market economy. It's free market and it's market forces. If people demand it and they want it, there'll be someone will supply it. I've got no problem with that. That's the society that we live in. No, I'm not talking about criminal offences. No, I'm not. I'm talking about censorship.
Jean?
And I don't believe in censorship.
Jean?
Well, Robert, I have a problem with that, because I don't think that anyone who's been locked up for murdering someone should benefit in any way.
Exactly.
And I was in Central Station in Glasgow when our notorious Jimmy Boyle, another scumbag, his book was on the book stand, and this man was standing beside me, and he was leafing through it, And he was going to hand it over to buy it. When I said to him, are you going to buy that book? And he said, what's it to you? And I said, well, I don't think you should be putting money in Jimmy Boyle's pocket. If you're going to buy it and he's going to give the money to victim support or someone, buy me, I'll buy it, I'll buy dozens. It doesn't happen.
Well, I bet you, Tommy, we're at the end of the programme. No, I can't. We've got 2 seconds to go. Well, there's the expert. He told you, didn't he, how what we should do to stop criminals becoming criminals. Perhaps we should listen to them. Perhaps our politicians should listen to him more than they listen to the penal reformers. They say, don't they, that crime doesn't pay. Not quite true, that, is it? It seems to pay for the criminals and those who write books about them. Don't think it should pay for either, really, or to stop it. Take care of yourself.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please join our Facebook group. It's called Krays Crime Lords of London. We're a friendly, moderated group with over 1,000 Kray and other celebrated gangster videos available for view. There's also thousands of images in the photos sections. The link for the group is in the YouTube description section. I hope we see you there soon.